What is going on, guys? Randall Thor 19 back with another daily video. Hope everybody is having a great day. Thanks for stopping by the channel, checking out my Forza Horizon 3 DLC review. Really appreciate that. Such a good game, such a great expansion. Check it out if you haven't already. This video is going to be about Mass Effect, Hitman, Phil Spencer, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Because Jesus Christ, what is going on in the gaming industry right now, guys? Seriously. Now, if you haven't heard, yesterday, we kind of talked a little bit about this on the Xbox 2 podcast with Jez Corden. Good podcast. Check it out when you got the chance. But the news came out from Jason Schreier, Kotaku, one of my faves, right? He put out that BioWare Montreal has been scaled back. And that Mass Effect has been put on ice. For now, in quotes. But from my understanding, put it on ice is basically... It means a lot more than that. From what I have been told by multiple people, Mass Effect is dead as a doornail. Shelved indefinitely, whatever term you want to use. Mass Effect is a game and a franchise that EA has no more interest in, similar to Dead Space. So I know a lot of people out there are kind of holding firm to the fact that maybe BioWare, maybe EA will revisit it at some point, but from everything I've been told, Mass Effect is dead. And I remember I made a video about this, if Mass Effect Andromeda could survive the facial animation memes and the poor reviews 2 months ago when the game came out, and a lot of people kind of said, you're jumping the gun on this one, Rand, blah, 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 and look where we are now. Now, obviously, they put the game on hold, quote-unquote on hold. They should just say it's never coming back, because the game didn't sell well financially. Probably didn't meet back their costs, or it didn't meet a big enough profit margin, so they're on to bigger and better things. And, you know, Mass Effect kind of started as a single-player only game and added multiplayer down the road, but to see such a gigantic franchise as Mass Effect be put on ice, it's just... It's mind-boggling where we are right now in the video game industry. I'm going to tie this all into what Phil said a couple weeks ago about the single-player stuff. And then the news hit last night from Square Enix. Even though Square Enix posted record sales and profits across the entire company, right? Even though they said that in their financial statements, they are splitting with Hitman creators IO Interactive. Now, they tried something different with Hitman this time. They sold it as episodic gaming, right? They sent out like the first episode, and then every couple months or every month they would have a new episode. It was critically acclaimed too. People said this might have been the best Hitman ever, or one of the best. It definitely had some really cool levels. I enjoyed what I played of it. But people are wondering, what the heck is going on? IO Interactive makes strictly kind of single-player games, and even though Square Enix has record profits and sales, they're looking to sell them to somebody else. Now, of course, I'll make the case that Xbox should buy IO Interactive. I've said this for a while. Xbox needs more game developers, more studios to make more games. That's kind of the issue right now with Xbox is you kind of know what you're going to get because you know what the studios are working on, right? So if you could pick up IO Interactive, that would be a great get. They make great stealth games. And Phil's been talking about the Game Pass idea with episodic gaming. What a better game to kind of debut that with is, you know, maybe Hitman from IO Interactive. Maybe if Microsoft decided to buy IO Interactive, they could also purchase the Hitman IP from Square Enix. It's an interesting thought. I don't think it'll happen, but it's interesting, you know, especially with the recent comments from Phil about episodic gaming and the Game Pass stuff, right? And then you also have the news that Prey isn't exactly setting the charts on fire in the UK, and it's probably not going to sell really good. You know, the reviews have kind of been polarized. I really like the game quite a bit. I know a few people that love it, but then there's a few people that hated it. I mean, IGN gave it a 4 out of 10, for Christ's sake, because of a game-breaking glitch on the PC version. Fair or not, you can check it out for yourselves. I thought that was kind of weird. But that's like 3 kind of single-player focused IPs, makers of the IPs. We have Prey, from Arcane Studios, Dishonored 2 and Prey, not doing so well. How long are they going to be around for, right? How long before Bethesda axes them, right? Now you have Square Enix parting ways with IO Interactive, makers of a strictly kind of single-player experience. You also have EA shelving one of their biggest franchises out there, Mass Effect. I thought would never possibly happen. I thought Mass Effect is such a big franchise, one of the mega franchises in gaming. Well, maybe mega is a little bit too big because it's not as big as some of the other ones, but a huge franchise, and they're shelving that too, right? And BioWare Montreal is now basically a support studio. A lot of the people have been moved from the studio to help out EA's other studio, Motive, who's working on the single player for Star Wars Battlefront 2. And if you guys don't know, that's Jade Raymond's studio. She used to work at Ubisoft. It started the Assassin's Creed games. That's her studio doing the single player. And then a lot of the other guys are at BioWare Austin, helping out with Star Wars Old Republic. And then some of them have been shifted to BioWare Edmonton, who are working on Dylan, right? The codename BioWare's new huge IP, which is supposedly, and I've been told this by a couple people, a Destiny killer. So who knows what's going on there, but I just can't help but think back to 2 weeks ago when Phil made those kind of infamous comments about single player, how they're more rare, how the industry is moving towards games as a service and things like that. And here we are, 3 developers of single player only type games, and they're on the chopping block. They're gone. BioWare Montreal disbanded pretty much after a single game. I mean, I know they're not technically disbanded, but they really are. They're not going to be making any new games, right? Mass Effect is now on hold because of it forever. IO Interactive, Square Enix cut ties with them, and then the whole stuff with Prey. It's like, man, was Phil 100% right? I mean, I always knew he was right. I mean, he's the head of Xbox. He gets all the analytics. He gets all the data. He knows what sells and what doesn't sell. But it's kind of a sobering thought to me. I look at all this stuff and I'm like, man, I don't want to live in a world where Prey can't exist or sell well. Say what you will about whether you liked or didn't like the game, but it was a single-player focused first-person shooter in the age of, they don't do those type of games anymore, right? And Hitman was a single-player focused. Yes, it was episodic, but it was still single-player focused. And Mass Effect, even though it has multiplayer, and that is kind of, they've tried to put a bigger focus on the co-op stuff, the game was still a single-player game at its core, and even the multiplayer was just co-op. And to see those games 2 weeks after Phil makes those comments about how the industry has to change, how they have to help developers so their games can sell well, so single-player games don't go the way of the dodo bird, right? Because games as a service is the new thing. People love it. It's just a sobering, depressing thought. Who knows? I mean, we all remember where gaming was 10 years ago, right? Look where gaming is right now. All the changes that we've seen happen in 10 years, whether it's about expansions, DLC, loot boxes, the rise of multiplayer games, all that stuff, publishers dying out, right? Where will gaming be in 10 years from now? Where will it be? Will single-player games be non-existent except for the few ones that are too huge to fail, like Elder Scrolls or Grand Theft Auto? But even then, Grand Theft Auto is a multiplayer game now. It's one of the reasons why it kind of keeps on selling, right? So there are a few single-player games that sell well, but not all of them anymore. The industry has moved on. And is that a good or a bad thing? Who knows? For me personally, it's kind of a bad thing. I like good stories in my games. I like single-player focused experience. I try to play all of them that come out. And to see game after game after game after game fall for whatever reason, whether the budget was too high, whether there was too many memes out before the game came out, right? Whether there weren't any reviews out for the game because of Bethesda's ridiculous review policy stuff that maybe helped destroy the game. or maybe not reach its sales potential. It's like, man, where's gaming going to be in 5 years? Are we just going to be in a games as a service like nightmare where every game has loot boxes and a multiplayer, focused system, and single player games are kind of rare and only done by the first party studios? Is that the future? I mean, that is kind of a depressing future if you ask me. It's not one that I particularly want to be in, but hopefully Phil, hopefully Sony, hopefully Nintendo can help these studios, help them sell more single player games and more copies, so the industry doesn't move away from them. Because if Mass Effect, guys, Mass Effect is dead. That's a thing, that's a quote, or that's a saying, that's something I thought I would never say in my life. Mass Effect failed. It failed. I honestly can't believe that. Knowing that BioWare basically and EA basically just shut them down to make other stuff, it's dead. Never thought it would happen in my life. Never thought I'd see it, but here we are, right? What is going on in the games industry, guys? What is going on? Anyways, that's the video. Hope you guys like it. Phil, if you're watching, pick up Ion or Active. Pick up the Hitman IP. Use that as like a premier game for your Games Pass service and go with that. They're a great developer. They need to be picked up by somebody good. And that's the final thought for this video. Subscribe if you haven't, and I will see everybody later.